The moment the CEO yelled at me to get out, I knew something inside the company had already decided I no longer belonged there. "Your patent can't pressure me," he said, his voice sharp enough to cut through the room. "Get out. My name is Ellen. I built the core system this company sells." I was standing at the end of a long conference table when he said it, with the board on one side and my own team on the other. No one spoke. No one moved. That silence was louder than his shouting. "I'm serious," he added, leaning forward. "We're done playing founder games." I opened my mouth, then closed it. Not because I didn't have something to say, but because I understood what he wanted. A reaction, a spectacle, something he could later describe as emotional, irrational, unprofessional. Instead, I reached for my laptop. One of the board members cleared his throat. He didn't say my name. He didn't say anything at all. The CEO gestured toward the door. Security. 2 guards stepped closer. They didn't touch me, but they didn't need to. The message was clear. "You can pack your things later," the CEO said. "We'll handle access." I nodded once, not in agreement, just acknowledgement. As I slid my laptop into my bag, he added, almost casually, "And for the record, the company owns the technology. Read your contract." I looked at him then, really looked. He was already turning away, already talking to the room as if I had vanished. I walked out without saying a word. The hallway felt too quiet. Someone behind me whispered my name, then stopped. The elevator doors closed. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I didn't check it. I left the building the same way I had arrived that morning, except now everyone watched me go. I did exactly what he told me to do. I got out, and I disappeared. The story you are about to hear is a fictional narrative developed by the creative team at Revoked. It explores power, authorship, and the quiet consequences of underestimating someone who knows exactly what they built. While the events and characters are imagined, the emotional truths reflect real dynamics that unfold every day in workplaces where credit is taken, voices are silenced, and control is mistaken for ownership. How fast can 5 years of work disappear once you're no longer invited into the room? I found out before noon. My phone lit up with alerts that didn't make sense at first. A red banner when I tried to log in, then another, then silence. I refreshed my email, nothing new. I tapped the calendar app, empty. I tried the internal dashboard I had checked every morning for years. A gray screen replaced my access. No warning, no explanation. Just a small line of text. "You no longer have permission to view this content." I walked back into the office because part of me still believed this was a mistake. "Hey, Ellen," someone said as I passed the engineering bay. It came out strained, like the word itself was dangerous. I stopped at Tyler's desk. He had set up half the system we were now locked out of together. "Did something change with permissions?" I asked. He didn't look at me right away. His eyes stayed on his screen. "They told me to reroute access this morning," he said quietly. "Who did?" He swallowed. "The CEO. Legal was copied." "What exactly did they say?" Tyler finally looked up. "That you're no longer part of the active product group. That it was temporary, transitional. The word landed heavier than the shouting had. I opened my laptop and pulled up the investor deck from my personal archive. My name was gone, not moved, not minimized, gone. The architecture diagrams were still there. The language was still mine. But the credit line had been replaced with a single-phrase proprietary platform developed in-house. I heard voices behind me. "Marketing. Too loud." "She won't be in the next meeting," one of them said. "We're simplifying the story." "Good," another replied. "Founders make buyers nervous." I stepped into an empty conference room and checked my inbox again. This time, there was an internal message forwarded to the whole leadership list. I was no longer on it, but someone had sent it to me anyway. "Ellen's role has been non-essential for some time." The message read, "We're aligning the narrative ahead of the acquisition." I closed the laptop. People walked past the glass. Some slowed, some looked away. No one came in. Whatever had started in that room yesterday was still moving, and it wasn't an accident. What if the proof of betrayal landed in your inbox by accident? It arrived at 9:42 in the morning, sandwiched between a calendar update I could no longer open and a system alert, reminding me my access had expired. The subject line read, "Quick question." The sender was Mark, junior analyst. Hired 6 months ago. Smart, eager, terrified of getting things wrong. "Hi, Ellen. His message began. Alex asked me to clean up attribution on the Intercalyx pitch deck. Your name still appears on a few legacy slides. Should I replace it with corporate ownership language to keep things consistent? Attached was the file. I didn't open it right away. I reread his message instead, listening to what it didn't say. He hadn't been told why my name needed to disappear. Only that it did. I typed back slowly. Can you forward me the version Alex is reviewing? Just want to make sure we're aligned. A pause. 2 minutes. Then the reply. Sure thing. Sending now. The new attachment came through with a different name. Final pitch board approved. I opened it. The diagrams were mine. The flow logic was mine. The language describing the core diagnostic engine was lifted straight from my original patent filing, down to the phrasing I had argued over with legal 5 years earlier. Then I saw the line under intellectual property, wholly owned by the company. No qualifiers, no license language, no mention of my name anywhere in the document. I leaned back and closed my eyes for a second, not to steady myself, to make sure I was reading it correctly. I replied to Mark, thanks. One more thing. Can you confirm this is the version being shared externally? Yes. He wrote back. This is what's going to the buyer. That was all I needed. I saved the file, renamed it with the date and time, took screenshots of the metadata. Then I forwarded everything to my personal attorney, Sarah, with one sentence in the body of the email. This document asserts ownership the company does not have. Her response came less than 5 minutes later. Received. This is not a mistake. I closed my laptop. They weren't just pushing me out. They were rewriting the truth. What's more dangerous than power using it too early, Sarah called within the hour. She didn't waste time with small talk. They crossed a line, she said. A clean one. Which line, I asked. The one they can't uncross. The document you sent asserts full ownership. That's a material breach. I leaned back in my chair. So it's done. It could be, she said. You can revoke the license today. The clause is clear. We notify them. The clock starts, and their usage rights end. I pictured the CEO's face when the system went dark. The satisfaction was immediate. Then it passed. If I do it now, I said. What do they say? Sarah paused. They say you're emotional, that you're retaliating, that you're a disgruntled founder trying to blow up a deal. And the buyer. They get nervous, she said. Nervous enough to listen to whatever story the company feeds them. I stood and walked to the window. Traffic moved the same way it always did. Nothing out there knew what was happening inside this phone call. What do you recommend? I asked. Not yet, Sarah said. You need him on the record, publicly. You need witnesses. You need him to say the lie out loud. He already said it in writing. Paper matters, she said. But people matter more. If he claims ownership in front of the board, in front of the buyer, there's no spinning it. I closed my eyes. He'll do it. Why are you so sure? Because he thinks I'm cornered, I said. Because he believes silence means weakness, Sarah exhaled. Then we wait. How long until he can't help himself? I thought of the meeting yesterday, the shouting, the way he'd wave me out like an inconvenience he'd finally solved. I don't want to hurt the company, I said. You're not, Sarah replied. You're letting it reveal itself. We ended the call. I didn't move right away. I opened the file again and looked at the sentence that erased me. Wholly owned by the company. I closed the laptop and set it aside. If he wanted to pretend he owned what I built, I would let him do it where everyone could hear. What does a threat sound like when it's wrapped in a smile? He asked me to come in late. After most of the floor had emptied, he didn't stand when I entered. He didn't offer me a seat. Ellen, he said, folding his hands. Let's be practical. I am, I said. He smiled like we were sharing a joke. 3 months of severance, continued health coverage, a clean exit, and the paperwork I asked. Standard, he said. A release, non-disparagement. You agree not to interfere with the transaction. Interfere how he tilted his head. By stirring confusion. By asserting claims that complicate the story. My claims, I said, are the story. His smile thinned. You're emotional right now. That's understandable. But buyers don't like noise. I didn't make the noise. I said, you did. He leaned forward. If you don't sign, people will draw their own conclusions. Which people? Investors, he said easily. The board. They'll assume you're holding the company hostage because you didn't get your way. I felt the heat rise, steady and sharp. You're going to tell them that, if necessary, he said. It's my responsibility to protect the deal. By lying about me. By controlling the narrative, he corrected. This is business. I looked at the folder on his desk. My name was already typed beneath the signature line. You're asking me to disappear, I said. I'm offering you dignity, he replied. Most founders don't get that. I stood, say it again. Say that I'm sabotaging the company. I said, say it where everyone can hear. He laughed once, short and dismissive. You want drama now? No. I said, I want the truth on record. He studied me for a moment, then shrugged. Fine, if that's what it takes to move on. I nodded. Schedule the meeting. As I reached the door, he added, almost kindly. You should think carefully. This ends better for you if you cooperate. I didn't turn around. It ends, I said, when you say it out loud. What happens when a lie is spoken where it can never be erased? The meeting was scheduled as a company update, but everyone knew better. The room filled quickly. People stood along the walls. No one looked relaxed. The CEO waited until the door closed before he spoke. We're here because transparency matters, he said, especially during a transition. I stood near the back. I hadn't been invited, but no one stopped me. He glanced in my direction and smiled. Some of you may be confused by recent changes. Let me be clear. He took a breath, the kind meant to sound patient. Ellen has been resistant to our growth strategy, he continued. She's attempted to leverage legacy claims to delay progress. Murmurs moved through the room. She's holding the company hostage, he said. And I won't allow one person to jeopardize what hundreds of us have built. I felt eyes shift toward me, some curious, some relieved it wasn't them. He straightened his jacket. The technology in question is company property. Always has been. That sentence landed harder than the rest. It was developed here, he added, paid for here, owned here. The board members seated along the side of the room watched him carefully. No one interrupted. I took one step forward. Say that again, I said. He looked surprised, then irritated. There's nothing to repeat. You just claimed ownership, I said calmly, in front of the board. He scoffed. Don't do this, do what I asked. Clarify. He raised his voice. The patent belongs to the company. The room went silent. I nodded once. Thank you, for what he snapped. For making it official, I said. He stared at me, searching for something panic, anger, regret. I gave him none. This meeting is over, he said sharply. Security. No one moved. I didn't either. I turned and walked out while the sentence still hung in the air, untouched and irreversible. By the time the doors closed behind me, the lie had witnesses, and the clock had started. What's scarier than confrontation silence? I didn't announce anything. I didn't warn anyone. I simply stopped responding. No replies to emails, no returned calls, no explanations. My phone stayed face down on the table while the world on the other side of it started to strain. At 9:15 that morning, Zara sent the notice, license revocation delivered. She texted. Effective notice acknowledged. Clock started. I didn't answer her either. She knew why. Inside the company, things began to slip almost immediately, not catastrophically, not yet, just enough to be noticed. A scheduled demo stalled when an update failed to deploy. An engineer sent a message to the group chat asking why the validation service wasn't syncing. No one answered him. By late morning, my phone began to vibrate. The CEO's name flashed across the screen. Once, twice, 3 times. I let it ring. A voicemail followed. His voice sounded controlled, but too careful. Ellen, we need to talk. There's been a misunderstanding. I didn't delete it. I didn't respond. Another call came through 10 minutes later, then another. By the 4th, the control was gone. Pick up, he said in the message. This isn't funny. At the office, Tyler sent a single line from an unmonitored number. Legal's running around. Something's wrong. I didn't reply. The absence did what no argument could. It removed him from the center of the conversation. He couldn't negotiate with silence. He couldn't intimidate it. He couldn't spin it. He called again and again. By the time the sun crossed the windows in my apartment, the calls stopped. Not because he'd calmed down, but because someone else had entered the room. The notice had reached legal. Legal had reached the board. And the board would soon reach the people who were about to invest $500 million in a company that no longer owned its future. What if the deal collapsed without you saying a word? I wasn't in the room when it happened. I heard about it in fragments. passed along by people who suddenly remembered my number. The CEO was in his office when his phone rang. He recognized the area code immediately, Palo Alto. The buyer's legal team. He answered on the second ring. "This is David Sterling," the voice said. Calm, precise. "We need clarification." The CEO straightened. "Of course. What can I help with?" There was a pause. Papers shifting. "We received notice that the license for the diagnostic platform has been revoked," Sterling said. "Who authorized that?" The CEO laughed, quick and brittle. "That must be a misunderstanding." "Who revoked the license?" Sterling repeated. Silence. "It's company property," the CEO said finally. "There is no revocation." Sterling didn't raise his voice. "Our records show otherwise." The patent holder exercised her rights under the agreement. Effective notice was served. The CEO stood up. His chair scraped the floor. "That's not possible," he said. "She doesn't have that authority." Another pause. Longer this time. "Your board was copied," Sterling said. "So was your general counsel." The CEO's hand tightened around the phone. "Give us time to resolve this." "There is nothing to resolve," Sterling replied. "Without a valid license, your company cannot legally operate the product." The line went quiet. Then Sterling spoke again. "We're canceling the transaction." The words landed without emphasis. No anger, no disappointment, just fact. "The funds will be released back to our accounts today," Sterling continued. "We'll be in touch regarding next steps." The call ended. In the hallway outside his office, people had stopped pretending not to listen. Someone dropped a folder. No one picked it up. The CEO stared at his phone as if it might explain itself. His hands shook, just enough to be noticed. By the time the board convened an emergency meeting, the news had already spread. $500 million was gone. And with it, the illusion that he had ever been in control. When the money disappears, who gets blamed? The first message came from the board chair, short, careful. "Ellen, we need to speak." I didn't answer. The second came from legal, then another from someone in finance I barely knew. Different tones, same urgency. This escalated quickly. "We're trying to understand what happened. There may have been miscommunication." By the afternoon, the company-wide email went out. Effective immediately, the board has placed the chief executive officer on administrative suspension pending an internal investigation. No adjectives, no defense, just distance. Tyler called me from a blocked number. His voice shook. "They walked him out," he said. "Same hallway, same security." I closed my eyes. I pictured it without effort. "Did he say anything?" I asked. "He kept telling them it was temporary," Tyler said. No one answered him. An hour later, Sarah called. "They're ready to talk," she said. "They want the license reinstated. They're offering compensation." "How much?" I asked. She hesitated. "More than before. That's not what I want." There was silence on the line. "I want the intellectual property transferred back to me," I said. "All of it. No license, no shared control." "Ellen," Sarah said carefully, "that leaves them with almost nothing." "I know. They'll fight it. They can try," I said. "But they already told the world they owned something they didn't. I'm not correcting that mistake for them." By evening, the board chair called again. "This time," I answered. "We'd like to resolve this quietly," he said. "For everyone's sake." "I'm sure you would," I replied. "What would resolution look like to you?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't soften it either. "It looks like my work coming home," I said. "Everything else is noise." He exhaled. "We'll discuss it." When the call ended, I didn't feel relief. I felt gravity shift. They were no longer deciding what to do with me. They were deciding how much of themselves they were willing to lose. Is winning about staying or knowing when to walk away? The board meeting lasted 12 minutes. The chair cleared his throat and said my name like it had weight again. "We've reviewed your terms." I waited. "The company will transfer full ownership of the intellectual property," he continued. "All related assets. No licensing agreement. No one argued. No one tried to negotiate. And the chief executive officer," I asked. He hesitated. "He's under formal investigation. He won't be representing the company again." That was all I needed. The documents arrived the next morning, clean, direct. My name where it had always belonged. I signed them without ceremony and sent them back. Tyler met me outside later that day with a box in his hands. "I figured you'd want this," he said, holding out my old prototype notebook. The one I'd started everything in. Are you coming? I asked. He nodded. So are the others. We didn't announce anything. There was no press release. No statement about vision or rebirth. The company kept its name, its office, its empty confidence. What it lost was the engine it had tried to steal. As for the former chief executive officer, people stopped saying his name out loud. In this industry, that silence is final. I took my work, I took my team. I took the quiet certainty that comes from knowing exactly what you own. The first day in our new space, Tyler asked, "What do you want to call it?" I looked around at the whiteboards, the cables, the familiar hum of something alive and unfinished. "We'll decide later," I said. There was no rush anymore. The life lesson I carried with me was simple and unshakable. Real power doesn't demand recognition, and it doesn't need to shout. It protects what it builds, chooses when to act, and walks away without asking permission because ownership speaks for itself.